Okay, I want to call the committee of the whole meeting for Monday, August 16th, 2021 to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gafino.
Here.
Trustee Carroll.
Here.
Trustee Gately.
Here.
Trustee Lowry.
Here.
Trustee Nedved.
Here.
Trustee Salazar. Here.
All right, thank you. Audience comments. All right, trustee comments. Okay, item 1, Steve.
Hi, item number 1 is going to be a review for a PUD amendment for a Casey's that wants to locate in the Randall Square subdivision. The board is looking tonight to give feedback on whether or not to move it forward for final approval.
Yeah, the Randall Square subdivision, or PUD, is actually located in the southwest corner of Oak and Randall. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite the petitioner up. He's going to give a presentation, and I'll go ahead and discuss some of the zoning requests associated with the petition tonight.
Good evening. My name is Eric Tracy. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Illinois, and I'm here on behalf of Casey's to represent this project. Go next slide, please. So Casey's was founded in 1959. Originally, they were based out of Iowa. Now they operate in over 16 Midwestern states, still primarily Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois, with over 2,200 stores. They own and operate all of their locations, so they have consistency throughout their locations. Casey's is also known for their fresh offerings, specifically pizza and bakery. They're actually the 5th largest pizza chain by sales in the country, which was surprising for me to hear. But looked it up, and it is a fun fact and a true one for them. They have fresh, made from scratch sub sandwiches and salads every day, and all their items are prepared fresh daily in their stores. Additionally, they have rewards that help to fund public schools. So this past March, they donated over $50,000 to 16 different schools. That's funded through their rewards program. Casey's has committed to reducing their CO2 emissions by over 50,000 pounds. They're converting all stores to LED lighting. They contributed more than 4.5 million last year to the community and charitable organizations and events throughout the 16 states in which they're located. Each Casey's development is an investment for them of $3 to $5 million on average. So it's a pretty sizable investment they make in their communities, creating 25 to 35 full-time and part-time positions with the development of each store. What you can see on the screen now is an aerial location map of the Casey's. So it's located on the hard corner of Randall and Oak Streets. Currently, the site plan is proposing a right and right out off of Oak Street and a right and right out off of Randall. The right and right out off of Randall will require a right turn lane based on the traffic study that's still being reviewed by village staff. This is a site plan that shows the turn lane and location I was referring to on Randall Road. What this development shows, it's a little difficult to see if you're not used to looking at these site plans, is 6 dispensers, so 12 fuel positions total in a single stacked canopy. So this is the landscape plan on the screen right now. Given the typical site planning of a fuel station, you have these maneuvering areas around the canopy. The landscaping needed to be made up in some other areas. So it's heavily landscaped along Randall. We've been working with staff to come up with a plan that feel meets the general intent of North Aurora's ordinance. This is an example of the current building prototype, and this is what we would expect the building to look like in this location. What you see on the screen now is some renderings of the canopy and a typical sign and the sign that they would propose in this location. I'm asked this often, so I do have to comment that I cannot guarantee the prices you see on it. This is an example photometric plan. It's not specific to this location, but it gives a pretty good illustration of what they typically go for, which is reducing light levels at the property line, a lot of downlit lights to light up the canopy. It's really important for high visibility. There are a lot of credit card transactions, that sort of thing. It's important for safety, but they do make an attempt to make sure that that doesn't spill over on the adjacent property. And this is somewhat of a heat map that depicts that. The warmer colors are the heavier lighting, and the softer colors are where the light levels go away. So that's a quick presentation I had for you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the development.
No, I think in our long-term plan, there was a fill-in station in that location, and I do know of Casey's. I personally go there a lot when I used to go out to the Cal. And it's like a general store. And I didn't know that the pizza was a high seller.
Yes.
I know they had sandwiches and that type of thing. So.
You know, I have overall, I'm very much in favor of the idea and look forward to the advantages for the village that I'm sure it'll provide. However, I had some thoughts about it. One is that we have the fossil fuel contamination of the environment, and I thought about maybe the tanks and how that can, as time goes on and cars become more and more electric, I was concerned about the contamination of the soil and things like that, and the difficulty it is in mitigating all of that, which led then to being an electric car driver to ask you, is it possible to add some charging stations, electric charging stations for electric cars? Because that definitely is the direction manufacturing is heading, if you're not aware.
It's a good question, and something that has come up at other similar hearings around the Chicagoland area. During my discussions with Casey, it's something that they are evaluating internally at this point. They haven't made the change to add that offering at their locations. They're looking at these stores, every 20 years or so, a store needs some renovations to be rebuilt anyways. So they feel that we're still in that time frame of traditional fuel store is a viable development and a benefit. Your question about the underground storage tanks is another good question. The technology with the tanks has come a really long way. There's immediate detection systems that people are notified right away of any spill, leakage, and they are on the hook to clean that up and make sure that there's no issue. So the tanks that they have nowadays are far different from the tanks that were installed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So they really have come a long way in that technology as well.
Right.
Yeah, there's a couple items associated with the petition. The use itself, gas stations are permitted per the Randall Square PUD. Parcel 5, which is the northeasternmost lot in the development. At what point in time, the preliminary PUD plan called for a video store on that parcel. So obviously now that's probably never gonna happen. But the gas station is a permitted use in the actual PUD itself. The convenience store use is actually allowed to be complementary with the gas station use in itself. But in any case, the use would be a gas station with a convenience store, for lack of a better term, on parcel 5. So we went to the Plan Commission at a public hearing on August 3rd. There was a unanimous recommendation for approval of a couple items. They consider the site plan. So we have a motion for approval from the site plan from the Plan Commission. Also, too, with the deviation from the underlying PUD, which again, going from a video store, and now it's going to be the gas station, which triggers the major change. But there's actually a 50-foot landscape buffer that goes along the property on the Randall and Oak side. That landscape buffer is part of the PUD, but it sort of mimics what's in the zoning ordinance pertaining to landscape buffers on major arterial roadways. The Plan Commission did discuss that item and did move forward with the deviations for recommendation. Also, to the size of the sign, I think the PUD allows for a 10-by-6 sign, which in this case, it's 11-by-6 sign with a 46 square foot identification area, where the PUD only allows 32 square feet. So there's just a minor deviation to the signage as well. With regards to the actual access points, so there are 2 access points, as Eric had mentioned, one on Randall Road and one on Oak Street. We actually have the village has an agreement with KDOT with regards to access points on both Randall and Oak Street. So one of the things we'd have to do is go back to the agreement with Kane County to make sure we would add those if the board decides to move forward this development, to add these additional access points. The one being the right in and right out on Oak Street, the one being the right in, right out off of Randall Road, which he had showed the storage and tapering of that deceleration lane going into the property. The one condition that the plan commission put on that was that that road, if you can go back to the site plan, Dave, that road that connects Randall Road, yeah, thank you, that goes from Randall Road to Miller Drive to the west right there, that get put in prior to occupancy of Casey's. I'm actually already in discussion with a different development to the south of that as well that would access that drive. So that was one of the conditions that the plan commission put on. If you have any questions about the zoning or the request, just let me know.
I have a question about that point, about the access road. I assume you've done developments that are very similar to this layout where you have in order to go the opposite direction, you got to pull out to the side and use the access road. Do you like have traffic studies or traffic counts? Because what I'm concerned about is when they get back to Oak Street and they're right across from Walgreens there, that's the same intersection, right?
Yeah, Miller. Yeah, correct. That does go across to Walgreens.
So there's going to be quite a bit more traffic at that intersection at some point. I would assume Casey's is a well-regarded gas station. So there's going to be a lot of traffic flow coming in and out of there, trying to turn left to go west on Oak Street. I mean, are there any sort of traffic studies or anything like that that you can share?
Yes, we did prepare a traffic study. It has been submitted to staff for review.
Okay.
So I know that the staff is currently reviewing.
Yeah, it's being currently reviewed by our outsourced engineering group. Yeah, and it looks like, there's different ways of circulating. If you're going, we would be westbound on that private drive heading north, but also too, what's good and what's bad about the right and right on of Oak Street, it kind of contains the traffic within Casey's. It kind of pushes it in a certain way. So if you're on the site and you're heading eastbound on Oak Street, you're using the right out there. And it kind of does open up the area. There's also to the south of that is Voss Drive that connects through, and also to Miller kind of goes out to Randall Road as well. So there'll be 3 connection points. There'll be many ways to kind of maneuver the site. If you have to kind of come in, make a left to go back up to Randall, there are different ways to kind of get in, get out. But yeah, the results of the traffic study will determine some of the, offsite traffic improvements. But they went ahead and proactively put in that decel lane. That's one of the conditions, or one of the issues we had or concerns with the development itself and how that traffic would function. It was originally just a right in coming off of Randall Road. So they added that storage and taper of the decel lane even prior to the review of the traffic study by our consultant group.
And then whose responsibility is it to put in that access road? Is it the developer?
So I think the developer property owner is going to be putting the road in. We did not put the stipulation associated with Casey's or making them do it. It just has to be done prior to occupancy of the Casey's.
Because I know we're looking at another potential development at the same time, and that traffic's going to go from nothing to pretty significant with 2 major, if everything goes.
Mm-hmm.
What I can add on that is our traffic study actually analyzed, working with staff, a few different scenarios, one being the Casey's development on its own, and one being the remaining developments happening all at once. So the traffic study that has been provided for review does have that factored in.
Yeah, the preliminary plan for the development was pretty involved. I mean, it had, gas stations and other retail service restaurants. And I think the direction that their owners are going at this point in time, if you see on the west side of Miller, there's some medical suites there. I think they're looking to continue some of that trend internal to the development and maybe have some of the retail uses off of Randall Road itself. So I don't think they're going to go it might not be as commercial as the development had originally intended to be.
Well, and other than that, I'm very much in favor of this project. I think this would be a great addition. It's a great location. I'm very familiar with Casey's in small towns out in Western Illinois, and they are the lifeline for some of those towns. So I'm excited to have another fresh food vendor as well as the gas station. So I think it's a good project.
Todd?
No, I'm happy to see that corner get developed finally. And I'm also happy that it's a Casey's, something different. It's not your Speedway or your just a general same one. So I'm very much in favor of this.
I think it's great. It's sustainable business like Casey's. We welcome you. And the
Carolyn?
community will as well.
Carolyn?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I have not personally gone there that much, but I know people who travel and they think it's great. And so I'm in favor of it. I'm glad to see that corner developed as well.
Mike?
No, I'm all for, I'm generally for it. I just had the one concern and
Right.
still encourage you to think about, it might be moving faster than your leadership is aware of. So I understand. I think that Ford is trying to have 50% of their cars by 25 is electric, and I think it's moving quicker than you think. So it'd be great to see it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm 100% for.
Yeah, we're happy to see that develop there. So thank you. Okay, all right. Item 2, Mike or Steve? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 2 is a incentive discussion about regarding a new dealership that is being proposed by the Gerald Auto Group for a Genesis standalone dealership off of Hanson Boulevard. The purpose of tonight's conversation is we like to bring these things as a concept first to see if the board is good with the general terms of the incentive agreement before we move forward and start negotiating further. And Mike's going to go into the actual agreement itself.
Yeah, more specifically, there hasn't been an official draft agreement yet, but what it is Gerald is part of their Genesis development. Currently, they're operating on, I think it's 209 is where the Hyundai dealership is. And from what I gather from the owners is that Genesis is encouraging that they split the Genesis brand out and, have a standalone dealership to, market more as a luxury brand, that it is. So what they're looking to do is move that Genesis operation out of the Honda dealership at 209, move it across the street to 204, which is the former Kia dealership. I think Kia moved in 2016 to the other site. I think it's 201, I believe. And now they're using the 204 site for accounting and general office for the Gerald Auto Group. So what they're looking to do is, I think the total estimated cost of the renovations is $4 million. So what they're looking to do is ask the village for half of that for $2 million, which would be spread about 50% of the sales tax over a 15-year term. And I think they provided some of the matrix and some of the projections with the sales tax. One other item associated with this is the fact that the auto dealership hasn't been used as a car lot since 2016. So we are going to take it to the Plan Commission for a special use in September. So there were some plans that were submitted, and I think we won't go through actual presentation tonight, but I think Dave will just kind of scroll through the plans so you can get a sense of what they're looking to do there to reinvigorate that site. And that actually would be the last remaining site, I believe, that would actually the whole auto mall at that point would be full retail, because I think it's the last site that's operating more as an office capacity. So with that, I'll be here to answer any questions and kind of fill in some of the requests as we go along. But I'll go ahead and welcome the Gerald Group up to speak to their plans.
Closest gas station to our, that'll save our people one traffic lane. I'll let John start.
Yeah, so we went ahead and we put the interior pictures in and then the preliminary site plan, those two plans that you had given me.
Good evening. I'm John Dvorak, Gerald Auto Group CFO. And just to kind of paint a little bit of the history, Mike alluded to some of it, but starting about 2016, the group has had the pedal to the metal with investing in expanding the group and reinvesting in the business with the development of 201 Hanson into the existing Kia dealership, the development of 204 Hanson into the new corporate accounting office, the development of 205 Hanson, which is the Subaru dealership, which was previously vacant. Recently, the completion of the Ford remodeling, and I believe some of you visited the grand opening not too long ago. And now we're also in the midst of expanding the Hyundai dealership, particularly its service department, and more than doubling the footprint there for service work. And I have recently been working with our bank, Comerica Bank, to leverage up and maximize our mortgage loans to the extent that we can. And we're again coming to the village and hoping to partner with the village for this unique and special opportunity for building the first luxury franchise in North Aurora. Yeah. As you can see from some of the photos here, the interior image is quite high-end and unique. And I believe there's a slide of the exterior image to share a little bit of a visual. We did obtain some preliminary plans from representatives from Genesis, of what they're looking to see. And there's the elevation. I think there is one of the exterior itself. I worked with our VP of sales to build a projection from which the model, and I don't know if this is included in the deck as well, the rebate structure itself.
It's not included in the slideshow, but the board does have it as part of their packet.
And the initial number was actually provided to us from Genesis. That's our planning volume for 2022, 248 units, and growing from there. Last year, the Genesis volume was fairly low. I think we sold 56 in total for the year. And even at 248, we would project to have a fair bit of a loss for the.
Sir, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
I'll try to speak up.
Yeah, please, thanks.
You're welcome. Our sales volume that was projected in that model of 248 units was the planning volume shared with us from Genesis in the model, and then it grows from there. For a comparison, last year, 2020, the Hyundai store where Genesis is currently located sold 56 vehicles. So quite a large jump. Genesis is in the midst of developing several new models. And to your point earlier, actually by 2025, they will be fully electric. Genesis will be an electric luxury brand. So we're on the same page. I think that essentially covers it. I mean, you can see in the materials that it does appear that it will likely take approximately 14 years in order to achieve that level of sales tax rebate, the $2 million. And the split of 50-50, I understand, is a pretty typical norm for such an arrangement. And I think this would be a great way to improve the community, build jobs, and add a significant amount of sales tax revenue. And Mike, you mentioned May, what the numbers were. June and July, except for the Ford store, were strong again. So you have a little bit more than your likely budget had set.
So the actual volume of the Genesis sales is going to go obviously up
Significantly.
So you're not going to be, cannibalizing what's there now. It's going to go into the dealership and then increase in volume and revenue.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So I'll introduce myself. My name is Doug Gerald. I know several of you, but just to add a few points of emphasis and before I turn it over for questions, the Genesis store that Mike's talking about right now is a pretty much a flat line. We've got about 56 cars that we sold last year. That was an all-time record. So to make this type of investment for hopefully 20 units a month new is, the reason why we're here, right? I don't believe in coming to the board every time we do a capital project, only in situations where I feel like the project's go ahead kind of depends on it. And that's what this situation would be. For example, the projects that John mentioned, the Hyundai building is a $5.5 million expansion of that existing Hyundai store. And that, is something that dealership can sustain and the business supports. So that's the reason why we didn't talk about that. The Subaru store in North Aurora at 205 was a similar project, not quite as big a price tag, but closer to what we've got proposed here. Same thing with the Kia dealership at 201. Both of those are pretty substantial capital investments that, is what we're happy to do to reinvest in our business and bring and add jobs to the community. This dealership is unique in a lot of ways. One of the ways is that as a luxury store, the projected best case scenario volumes are significantly smaller than even our Ford dealership, which is our next smallest store in terms of volume that we have. We've got a 15-year projection that if we hit is about 900 units a year in year 15. We don't have a single store that will only sell that number this year. With the possible chip shortages at Ford, might bring that one close, but the volumes are a totally different playing field. The other thing that the board should take note of is how few luxury points there are outside of Naperville and Schaumburg in the northwestern suburbs. So, there's a couple in St. Charles, but when you go north of Naperville, even when you go to Elgin, you're not going to see a BMW or a Lexus or anything like that. The thing that makes this project somewhat different for us, and which apart from the obvious reason that this is our preferred location due to the rest of our operations, is that the area of responsibility assigned to us by Genesis is absolutely astronomical, significantly bigger than any of the dealerships that we currently carry. We are responsible for selling cars as far west as Dixon, as far south and west as Peru LaSalle. We touch parts of I-55 to the south, don't quite go to Joliet, that market's to somebody else, but we're in Manuka all the way north, south, both sides of the river, Batavia, Geneva, up to the southern part of St. Charles. And then we take Randall Road way up past St. Charles, not quite to 90, but into South Elgin. The area is just enormous. And we believe that, that the auto mall, as has been discovered by many of our customers, has a great location to service that relative to I-88 and, and Orchard Road and its proximity to, it's the ease of getting in and out. But that makes the decision on where we put the store and how we make the investment, and if we do it at all, a significantly more challenging prospect and risky prospect for our organization as we evaluate this. The future of the electric side of this business, unfortunately for us, exponentially increases the risk on us as running a business without the revenue of parts and service by that year 15, right? I'm not going to have that many gas-powered Genesises on the road to support a parts and service operation in that dealership. So that's not to say that, we're not willing to take the risk. It just is, hopefully explaining why we're here asking for a partnership on this. And, the spirit of the Ford agreement, which, I'll mention, was one in which I'm proud of the way that, our team worked with your team to put that together. And, by providing a baseline, with the tax base the way that it was, and then only asking for participation from the village when that base is exceeded, is something that is going to prove useful for the first 12 months of our agreement, as nobody could have foreseen. But we sold 18 new Fords at that location in our brand new facility in the month of July, when our pro forma that we gave you, I'm sure, showed closer to 60, right? And so we sold a lot of used cars. We're not that far off of the number, but we won't be. The village is going to get all of it. The risk for sales tax was, I think, put where it belongs, and that's on the business owner. This is a project that's similar. The reason we're asking for 50/50 is because, this is a capital investment that we'll have to make all up front. And if we do get the full 2 million, 15 years to get the $2 million, I think is a relevant consideration for that. But getting some tax incentive money that isn't there right now is hopefully attractive to the village. The other thing that John didn't mention is that we've gone out of our way to make sure that the 35 employees that are currently working at 204 Hanson Boulevard, this site, we have purchased a office complex that was 35% vacant at the time that we purchased it at One Smoke Tree Plaza, which is also in North Aurora. And we're in the process of renovating that. we'll have 41 workstations there. So that'll be able, for us to keep all the jobs in the village. Again, that's that's reinvestment that we're not, asking for any help on, of course, but, hopefully I'm overselling at this point. I'll take questions.
And also too, we just, we presented the plans tonight, the concept. There would be a draft agreement that, if the board wants to move forward with this, we would bring a draft agreement back before the village board for discussion.
Is this draft agreement similar to that previous one we did with them when they tried to expand their service center? Is it similar, have similar structure to that where there's a base?
Well, this one would just be 50-50. It would based upon the sales volume. I put it in the board report tonight was he had mentioned the Ford dealership. Basically, the created the baseline, I think it was $219,500. And then anything over that was paid back at 85%. So it was almost like in a weird way, like a TIF, like a TIF reimbursement. But in this case too, they're asking for 50% of the revenue, the sales tax rebated back to them to eventually pay for the improvements put into the property.
I think the most important way to explain why it's set up that way is in the previous incentive agreement, you already had a knowledge of how many cars were being sold there. And the expansion was, the impetus was that the expansion would create more sales. So you were sharing that revenue above what we knew to be the baseline. In this case, it's considered a vacant. There's no dealership. So the baseline is 0 right now. That's why it's 50-50 because we're sharing as we go up together.
I think your explanation was very thorough and very good. So thank you for that. Because I'm always a little hesitant with these tax agreements, the rebate agreements. And I was nervous about this one before your presentation. I feel better about it now because as we sit here and I'm thinking about it, you're basically creating revenue for the village that doesn't exist now. I mean, it does to some extent, but it's minimum. And I think if all goes as planned, it's a windfall for the village and a windfall for you. So generally, I would say I welcome the project. So, and I'm in favor of the agreement.
Yeah, no, I agree with Mark. I feel that it's almost like a motivation to generate tax to get the rebate. So I'm absolutely in favor of that. The only question I would have is, not to be negative, but what would happen if this 2 million was not reached within 15 years? What happens from there?
Well, that would be, we'd have to write that into the agreement, but then we'd be out that. It would be up to us to earn the full 2 million in the timelines that we negotiate. So
yeah, typically they would just be a cap on a certain number of years. And once the duration of the agreement, expires, then there'd be no more rebate after that.
Okay.
Or the opposite, if sales are really well in the first few years, it actually gets paid off sooner and then it expires early.
Yep. Okay. No,
What happens on the other end if you make a windfall profit and you sell many more cars than you expected to? Is there some kind of an agreement to deal with that?
That means our 50% is much higher.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that just means that we would get our $2 million faster, which would benefit us.
A shorter period, right?
Correct.
Shorter period of time, but then you'd be 100%.
Yeah.
Taxes.
No, I'm all for
we get the
I'm all
sales tax,
for
so-
approving.
Hopefully we all get that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm all in agreement with you guys and certainly approve this exciting actually possibility. So I'm with you on that. So
So it's capped at $2 million. And if that's met in 5 years or it's met in 12 years, it's capped at 2 million regardless. And
Correct.
or a maximum of 15 years.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm in favor of it. I think it's exciting to bring something like this to the village. I think it's a win-win. And generally speaking, I'm in favor of it.
I'm good.
I just want to say, you guys always been a good partner and you do what you say and, you drive down there, it's attractive. That's a nice addition to the village right off the tollway and Orchard. And yeah, we're happy to partner with you. So,
Thanks.
yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Item 3, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to give a little longer of an intro and then I'm going to let Mike finish. Item number 3 is a review of a Unit 3 plat of subdivision for the Moose Lake Estate subdivision. As of right now, here's a little synopsis of where we're at. So Moose Lake has 68 remaining lots. 36 of those lots are specifically in phase 3 of the development, which is undeveloped, so to speak. There's no houses yet built in phase 3. As part of their current annexation agreement, in order to build in that phase, they have to get that plat reapproved by the village board. As you may recall, we had several discussions about 9 months ago or so on this issue when a developer was interested in taking the remaining lots and building. At the time, we received a lot of feedback from residents. The board ultimately chose not to approve the plat. That developer has since moved on. And right now we have a new developer who is interested in building those remaining lots of 1 and 2, as well as the remaining lots in phase 3 that have to have the plat reapproved. So tonight's discussion is the approval of the plat. With that permission of the board, potentially at the September 20th meeting, it would give them the ability to move forward with that development. What we know as of right now, based on the amount of feedback we got from the residents last time, we did reach out to the HOA and we've been in contact with them. We've been in contact with the representatives of the property owner, and we've been in contact with the builder themselves. The HOA president, I believe, is on our Zoom call and is available to speak if anyone wants to talk to him. The builder I saw the builder in the crowd tonight. What we are happy to report is that the 3 parties appear to have an agreement in place that includes minimum lot size, or excuse me, minimum house sizes for 1-story and 2-story homes, as well as architectural renderings that would show what types of houses would be built in that subdivision. With that, once again, the plat is a simple approval that would just go forward for a vote. But Mike is going to take you through what we're working on right now, which is looking at the annexation agreement.
Yeah, so the annexation agreement, and many of you probably remember this conversation from 2020, is basically a contractual agreement for the development of the property, which is good for a 20-year term. And then I think we're getting near expiration. I think we have a 1.5 years left on that. So basically that annexation agreement outlines terms of the agreement with the responsibilities of the developer, whether it be, facilitating public improvement, expansion and things like that. Moose Lake was done in 3 phases. So we're talking about unit 3, the plat itself, but units 1 and 2 are primarily built out. A lot of the public improvements have been put in, sidewalks. I think the only outstanding improvement maybe in the remaining lots that are currently built are parkway trees. So with that, we're sitting down with McHugh Builders, who is the group interested in actually facilitating the remainder of the development, is just having that conversation with their obligations under the original annexation agreement, more or less setting out some terms that would help be beneficial to both the village and the developer. One of the major points being the fact that the plat would have to be actually executed within 6 months of approval. So what we're looking to do is now, if we look to do an amendment to the annexation agreement, would be to expand the time that they could actually move forward with the recording and the approval of the unit 3 plat, maybe up to 2 years, to give them some time to fulfill their development of units 1 and 2 as they move towards unit 3. And then they would have the ability to later record the plat and then post surety, which is the development, surety bonds or letter of credit that would cover those public improvements going in. So we are discussing the specific contractual terms of the development itself. So that we're not at this point in time, not sure, but we do have a 15-day notification period, which should be before the September 20th meeting. So we have been in contact with McHugh Builders and the property owners to go over those terms. So that would be coming September 20th should the board decide to move forward with those terms of the agreement. So with that, I'm not sure if McHugh if you guys wanted to say anything tonight. I know there was a lot of discussion last year regarding the issues of not approving the plat. More or less, the design, the size of the homes didn't match what was currently out there. So there is agreement that we've seen it's in place. It does set for some minimum sizes for ranch homes, minimum sizes for 2-story homes. And I believe there's a set of actual, elevation plans that would be built in that subdivision. So there was concurrency, which sounds like on the part of the HOA and the HOA board for these units to go in the subdivision. It seems to be a lot of excitement, to be quite honest with you, with filling up the development. So I'm not sure if you guys wanted to say anything, Rich.
I'll just briefly introduce
introduce us. I'm Rich Guar, representing Billy. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Builders have a long history of custom, semi-custom. It has standard plan. House is different. We've seen some of it. So that with the association. We signed off on our proof of. We have a signed agreement with no parties, property and builder and all three plans to build all of them. So that agreement becomes effective if the plan is approved, if we have the annexation approved by the village and then close. Obviously, if we don't close, then no one has an agreement, it goes back to state.
Hey, Rich, sorry to interrupt. Do you mind going from the microphone? Because we actually, it's hard to hear. We have the Zoom feed as well. No, you're right.
You're saying pretty loud. People are asking me to quiet down a little bit. But I didn't really have much else to say. I just wanted to introduce Billy and ourselves, and I don't know that Billy has anything else he wants to say.
The only question I have is, so that the homeowners association has signed off on an agreement with, facades, the lot size and the minimum size.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, that was a holdup.
Yes, it
Is he on? Is a person from the HOA? Can he
Yes,
speak?
the HOA president is on and he's available to
The-
speak if you want him to.
Yeah, we'd like them to say, what is your thoughts there, on this proposed project?
Aaron Brown.
And maybe can he say a few words?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. There was a process of getting unmuted there. So I'm Aaron Brown, the HOA president. I think all of your assumptions to this point in conversation are accurate. The HOA did meet with Mr. McHugh, and we were able to take a look at his product. The entire community is very excited about it. He was able to give us all the plans to view, and he's met or exceeded all of our minimum architectural standards, and to have the opportunity to finish our community with his product would be a thrill.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for?
I just, so all the agreement with the HOA, that'll be built into the annexation agreement?
No, so that's considered an actual separate private agreement with them. But we would be breaking in basically just some of the terms of the annexation agreement itself.
I'm good. I think it's a good project. It'll be nice to see the project completed and that subdivision completed.
Sounds like we got peace in the valley.
If the HOA is happy, I think we just need to get out of the way and let it happen.
I'm thrilled. And if he's representing the homeowners and they're thrilled, then I think, it's win-win for sure.
I don't know. No, I'm kidding. I'm all for it.
Electric house.
I think the completion of that area is going to be fantastic too. That's great.
I think it's
Especially since the homeowners association and the residents out there are in agreement with it this time. That's terrific. So
I think it's kind of ending we were looking for back 6 months ago, 8 months ago with the other group. So, I mean, we're happy, and I've seen your homes, very nice, and I think we'll fit in nice, and I think everybody's working together. So it's a win-win. I think we're all in agreement. Let's move forward.
Thank you.
Yep.
all right.
All right, number 4, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Last item on the agenda is, I mentioned it at the last board meeting, I believe under my report. It took a while, but as you know, the village officially approved 19 South Lincoln Way's purchase. Dave, if you mind putting some pictures up just to show you what the property looks like. There's a property that we've been trying to acquire for a while, and as of right now, We're getting ready to put together demolition proposals to take it down. That's the current, they've actually took these pictures today so that we give you the most recent pictures. Staff has been inside the building. It is not in great condition, to say the least. And before we ever demolish a village property, I thought it was prudent to get consent to the board before we start the process of soliciting bids. So that's it. If you have any questions, please let us know. But as of right now, that's the goal. The goal is to get the bid packets going. It might just be a simple proposal process. And we go out, we hire a company, and then we will assess it at some point later where we can determine possible uses for it.
Did you, I read somewhere in the packet, there is something about an asbestos situation, is there?
Yeah, and that's not uncommon when you demolish a building, depending on the age of it, that we've done that, I believe, in one of the homes we purchased, where you have to go back in and depending on the age, you have to have certain things, maybe potentially mold remediation as well.
Yeah.
So you have some of that before you can actually demolish it.
Right.
We all good?
Can't wait to see the new property.
I say go for it.
Bonus.
All right.
Get rid of that thing.
That was item 4. I'm going to circle back to audience comments because I know Mr. Slaker indicated that he'd like to speak, and I think you were outside at the time when we shifted to the committee of the whole. So you're welcome to come up and just state your name and address. And
Thank you for getting me in.
Yeah.
Bill Slaker, 129 South Lincoln Way, North Aurora. We've been looking forward to the sidewalk going in back to the days of the Route 31 committee. There was money in the ComEd, and they were going to bury the utility poles, and the sidewalk was going to go in. That money disappeared, and then later on it was the TIF. So right now, the staff knows that we have not been able to get, and they're in the process of getting, they're already teed up to put the sidewalk in. We have not been able to, until today, is the first time that we had anybody out that would look at the property to try and come up with a plan. And that's been a requirement of the village, has been that we have to come with a plan in order to get approval. And we have not been able to get that plan. So we've been stuck between a rock and a hard place on getting this done. So right now, we're going to get booted off of where we park. And, you know, it's kind of like tough newbies. I think there's an assumption that there's a green area, and Steve referred to it as the grassy overgrown driveway. That's an assumption. It's a former fire lane that went down to the river, and we referred to it when we looked at it, trying to turn it into a driveway, as the whack-a-mole. You fix one thing and another thing comes up, and we get all done, it just basically doesn't work. What was discussed back in 2012, which there was no memorandum on it. It was in July 6, within a couple of days of that, it was part of the sidewalk going through, that something was to be done as far as allowing us to move further east with our parking. And one thing I was not really keen on, and that was that it was going to be done with creosote timbers, and proximity and the smell, and there have been a lot we've observed over the years that the timbers have been used in the village for retention, and in time they let go, and there was a lot of replacing and whatnot, the landscaping. But it was, you know, it's like take it or leave it, and so that was the deal. They both Wes and Scott Buning left within a couple of weeks or 3 weeks in the middle of August, and that was the end of that. It was not memorial. There was no documentation on it. Then fast forward, we had Mike came on board. Then there was the flood, and then when Steve Bosco came on board, there was a discussion that was brought up, and I don't know that we necessarily got agreement on that. It was more like, later kind of a thing, but Steve has no recollection, and Mike has been tied up. He's with other things. Reached out to Scott Buning, and he said that his recollection was that whatever was on was going to be hardscape, and that they never would have approved creosote timbers. I followed up and said, well, possibly, maybe the way it was is that there were timbers and they weren't creosote, excuse me, but I couldn't change the part of my recollection that it was timbers. And that there was no response to that. I also couldn't reach Wes, and Scott also indicated that that Steve had reached out to him, and that he gave him the same answer. I'm assuming that he was more candid between professionals. So right now we're looking at no place to park. Now, the other thing that was brought up was the possibility of graveling the area to the north and doing temporary parking there. And that's attractive, and also it's not, because these things have a tendency to become permanent. And the time frame we're looking at, the village had 8 months for the to get the IDOT approval, and we've been multiple months now just trying to get somebody to show up to look at it in order to do a preliminary plan. I mean, we've had they're very busy. We're working from sun up to sundown. Some we know that from also working on the farm that they have the same issues there.
You're talking about a private
Pardon me?
contractor? You're talking about a private contractor, right? Somebody?
Yes.
Not
yes. Well,
village staff.
remediation type people.
Mhm.
There's long lines at the tipping areas. There's to get crews, to get trucks, manpower. It's ridiculous, but it's a good problem to have unless you're on the end that needs something done. So anyhow, we're looking, if we're takes this long to get a person, that time frame, and then I don't know how long it's going to take to actually get something done. So we're looking at over a year. We're just basically kind of stuck, and we're exploring all avenues. We tried to go ahead and do it on our own going back some time ago. And the number that we got at that time, several years ago, was like $50,000, which even looking at half of that, it was kind of like a hard one to swallow. So I've been doing homework trying to come up with a design on our own and present it. Here's maybe if they saw that it wasn't that big a deal, it wasn't that hard or whatever, to look at it to get somebody to come on board. It looked at what I had done here today, which one of the problems we have is that people will come in. Originally, the parking area had a cut right in the middle. And once again, there's been assumption that somehow we went to work, we came home, and the cut had been moved from the middle, which allows the shuffle. We call it the shuffle parking, and it was put over at the end where the fire lane is. It's kind of really messed things up. That's why we are now going beyond actually landing and parking in the north lot. And in order to get that moved back, that requires the cooperation of the village as well as IDOT. It shouldn't be a big deal because for some reason it got moved over, get it moved back. But basically that allows you to come in and go either way and work back and forth. One of the issues we have with the cut where it is right now, there's a turnaround problem. They've got it at A&W, they've got it over at the overhead door, they've got it, it's not a problem at 150, that's the old farmers, the attorney's office, where they seem to kind of get lost in this area and either coming from the tollway or from the other direction, they get kind of mixed up. And so they pull in, and when they pull in the past, we've had issues with them. They go down the hill. And we've had, many cars down there. Actually, if you see where we park, there's only one car and the other cars like in the shop or something, we'll park right over it. Other times you can go back and Google this. You can see the pictures. Other times we have a car so that the back end kind of blocks it to discourage them. And so the other car can get out. Now it's going to be a problem getting back in. We also put up some stick boundary to define the edge so that maybe they'd see that and they would be disinclined, but they go right over the curb and things like that. So, and I used to take those posts, and as they get broken off, I would take and cut them off, and I had a little socket. I'd get a big, it work its way down. But I talked too much here. Anyhow, that issue with people turning around, that was another thing that was put into the drawing that I did. And that is, it has a center where you'd come in and it could be as a turnaround, but it'd also be a catcher versus having it being so short that they would go off the end. And now talking about having some sort of barrier there or something so that, just for the liability part of it. So that's kind of, I have nothing other than, a problem trying to get this thing going. We like the idea of the sidewalk. I think it's good that it's overdue for the people. There's a lot of people that could use it up there from Edens, and there used to be people over at the nursing home that there used to be for the adult, the old children, if you will, that would come and walk. It was closed. That was a sad thing, but we like the idea of the sidewalk. We're just it's kind of tough on our situation. So that's where we're at. Thanks for time.
Thank you. Steve, can you maybe just get us caught up on the sidewalk itself and kind of where we're at with all that? And
Sure. And I'll try to articulate, I think, what Mr. Slaker was trying to get across a little bit of where he's at. So currently, and there's a image up on the screen right now, currently there are cars that are parked in front of the home on what we believe to be the IDOT right of way. And that is where the sidewalk essentially is going. As you know, sidewalks are part of the strategic plan to make connections on Route 31. So right now, he has a curb cut right there. You can see it where it goes down to, and it's whatever you want to call it, whether it's an access way or a precursor to a driveway. Too close. There is a access, obviously, where the curb cut is, and it goes down to his house, and the hill is fairly steep there. So what has happened is what we've had, let me give you a little history. So as Mr. Slaker had indicated, it goes back to about 2012. The village applied for a sidewalk grant and was eventually awarded that grant in 2014. As he alluded, previous administrator, community development director were here in 2012. Mike and I took over by the time the grant was actually awarded. The grant was essentially frozen for like 5 years, and it got reinstated. And as part of that, we have kind of a deadline to get the sidewalk in, and under our current provisions, I believe it has to be done by the end of the year. So it's one of those things where we asked every year, where's the money going to be? Is it here? Is it here? And the state says, not yet. And then all of a sudden it's here. And they've been good to work with, but they do have a timeline to close it out because it's been so many years. We mentioned going back in February, there was some work done in the right of way, and we did mention to Mr. Slaker that we intended to put the sidewalk in the near future. And we've been in contact with them several times in the last few months. Myself, our engineer, John, actually visited his house, spent a lot of time on the phone, and emails and whatnot. And it really comes down to the options that are available. Mr. Slaker is he believes that there's one very good option. We believe that just as any other private homeowner, we would like something to review so that we can actually determine if it's a reasonable option, meets our codes and whatnot. And what we have discussed are there's been 3 discussions of parking areas. One of them is the north part. There's a parcel that Mr. Slaker owns to the north of his house, where his car is currently shown on the screen. Just a little bit to the north and east of that, that parcel is fairly flat. So we've actually indicated that that might be a good solution to find a flat surface. Mr. Slaker has shared several concerns about moving his cars to the north area. He's worried about devaluation of his property. He's worried about the access for people to get to his house. He believes the car to be somewhat of a kind of a stop, if you will, barrier to go down the hill. Another option would be to pave the access way down to the house. The grade is steep. It's not a normal grade. And there's a lot of discussion on whether or not Mr. Slager has actually gotten someone out there to look to see if they can actually build the driveway or not. That would be acceptable, despite the fact that it's steeper than normal. No one's definitively said yes or no that it can't be done safely. And then the third is, as Mr. Slaker was, and please, Bill, if I get this wrong, feel free to jump in. But the other option they was referring to is a retaining wall, where he would like to have some more of the land along Route 31 by where that gravel path is right now, kind of extended out towards his house so that he has more room east of where the sidewalk's going to park his cars and move safely. And I believe that what he was indicating was that the best way for that to work would be for IDOT to approve a separate curb cut.
Well, as far as using the ramp area, that you've got 8 feet. If you look up anything, you've got a total of 18 feet down at the bottom. You can't turn around. We've tried parking down there. And we've tried the stop and back down, backing out. It just, I mean, I don't know how smart you think I am, but for all these years to be hauling groceries up and down the hills there, all, year round, all right? Why would we do that if this other option worked? Okay. The other question is, why does that parking area exist in the first place? Why? If that other is so good, if it works even a little bit, why does that parking area exist? Okay, well, that parking area exists as of 1955 or earlier. Okay, and it was put in probably by Bob Arthurs, otherwise known as Robert C. Arthurs, business partner of Robert C. Appel, when they did the RCA subdivision. And that was their determination of the fix for that. In fact, they parked there. So you really can't fix that drive. And the best you could, if you start building it up in order to make it work, you start getting up in a situation where the sides are too steep. We have like the tree service come in to do work. They wanted to come in, and we got permission from Lindu's so they could come in that way versus coming down that drive. And that's pretty good equipment. They're pretty, these guys fit in any place. That is an issue to get down there. Now, having said that, we'd also like to keep that ramp just for dumpsters, tree service, delivery of equipment, this type of thing. It's kind of like, well, so we're looking at what we presented to the fellow here today was basically parallel, move the cut from where it is, the car right now is blocking. Move the cut back over the mailbox or it's the middle and have it be in the middle. Now, the other part of it would help if we had to turn around to get out, that would be nice. But the other part of it is the liability of the people coming in and going over, because that'd be about a 4-foot drop off the end. Now we can put up a barricade and things like that there. It's just, we just basically want to give them time to stop. But that was just a very preliminary first today. And the other thing is that $50,000 figure became, he said he looks at it and he goes, well, you know, those retaining walls are expensive and all the rest of it, top of his head would be 100,000. So I'm going, oh, well, that's kind of nice. But this is the first, maybe he has a chance to think about it, look at it, but that's where we're at right now. But yeah, that using it for a driveway, not so much. We were offered to gravel and to do on the north lot there. It has some other drawbacks that we could talk about privately, but the other part of it would be afraid that we would get stuck there and that we'd never get things fixed. And the net present value of all that situation is a pretty big hassle. So I guess any questions?
Well, if I could sum up where we are, specifically, literally today. So as of today, we have indication that Geneva Construction is ready to start on Wednesday with construction of the project. So they'll be out there tomorrow doing some markings and whatnot. They were out there today. Mr. Slaker.
Excuse me. And this is not, you know, we didn't wait till today to, you know, we've been trying to get this done and we've been communicating with the village, you know, our situation.
So Geneva is looking to go forward. So Mr. Slaker has indicated that he would like us to hold up, delay the project a little bit to get some reassessment determinations on some concerns he has with the IDOT right of way. Wants to defer, it basically determine exactly where it ends and starts and whatnot, to make sure that ownership is completely clear of who has that right of way. He would like,
again, excuse me, interrupting. This is, you know, last ditch type stuff. I don't think we should have been in this position. I think that there's some things that could have been done before this, so we didn't get to this point. I was going to talk a few times before, but each time we thought we were close to having something to come in and present, so that, you know, we wouldn't be having any kind of conversation like this. But here we are.
Have you presented anything to them though?
Pardon me?
Have you presented a drawing or any engineering to move this forward? I mean,
To the village?
yes.
The requirements that we would have, we present this, that was the starting point. Ground zero to bring that to the village as a starting point. And we've been stuck.
So have you? You
Pardon me?
you haven't brought anything in, right?
Right, I haven't brought
Right.
anything in.
I think that's the hang up is we're
That's
looking
right.
for you to,
That's been the hang up.
you know, they gave you some options. I mean, I've kind of heard what's been going on for the last 6 months and they have given me options as far as the north lot, parking there,
And-
helping
and-
out, setting a pad up for you. They have given you options. It's just,
Well,
you didn't like anything. And I think generally, like I said, in business, you bring it to the village and say, this is what I like to have built. They can look at it and be
It
done
makes
with it,
perfect
because this has
sense.
been going on for,
Makes perfect sense. And
this
that-
has been going on for
That's
years.
what we'd like to, and that's, if you
Right.
could magically make that, happen, that would be great. Now, the other thing that was asked of me was, well, why doesn't the village, do the, the engineering, lay it out and do it, but that, and I've talked to Brandon a couple of times, and other than, it's just like, the village is not going to take any kind of responsibility like that. And I understand that. But we haven't been able to come through.
right, right. But as far as taxpayer dollars, engineer a project on private property is not really something we're
Well-
probably interested in as well.
Well-
That's why we're looking for you. If you just come with a project,
That's
Let-
right.
let
We
these guys
have
look at
not
it.
had that project, and
have you had
one of the
engine?
things that we talked about with our council was hiring or reimbursing the village for the engineering and for the cost of doing the project. But that opens another can of worms. I can't believe this stuff.
Right, but I think we're, looking for you to come with an engineered plan. Staff would look at it and move on with this, because the $75,000 grant's gonna expire end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and you're parking on the sidewalk, looking by the picture here, that's where the sidewalk should be. So I've seen people walk up and down there. They have to go around your car and
Mhm.
all that. So I mean, it'd be nice to,
Sometimes they don't make it all the way around.
yeah,
And the bikes, and we
Right.
get, mirrors broken off, we get the taillights broken out.
So, I mean, I think that-
Glass, we have the vandalism, all
right.
that.
I think the staff's really worked hard. They spent a lot of time getting to where we're at here, and it's like, we're just
And I'm
gonna
not,
tread.
and I'm not belittling that.
No, I know that. I'm just letting everybody else know on the board here that staff's worked their tail off and, try to come up with a remedy for you. But I think the illness falls on you. It's your property. You have to figure out where you're going, where you're gonna,
I know, let's blame
But-
IDOT. Let's blame IDOT that they didn't get there, they didn't give you enough time, or give us all enough time. Okay? And
I mean, staff has a lot of other projects to
They'll
do.
feel bad when we blame them.
Right,
I
right.
think ultimately where I was going was, so Mr. Slager's indicated that he would like the village to help design a solution. And where we're at with Geneva being here on Wednesday, we did reach out to Geneva and we asked them about their timeline and what we can do about it. I think it would be reasonable if we could delay it for a few weeks, make sure that we do what we can to help assist in a way. But the problem is what's going to ultimately happen is I'm worried that if we do assist in any way, it may not be the solution that the resident wants. And therefore we're going to be back here in a month anyways. So
I'm confused as to why this is the village's problem. If I wanted to rip out my driveway and park on the sidewalk, I couldn't do that at my house. This is private property. You have to take some responsibility
Yes.
hold on,
Okay.
to come with some sort of a solution or plan for the village to look at. I'm looking at this picture and I mean, it's clear to me that there's no driveway on this property. And, whether it was there in 1955 or not, it's 2021. And you're as the homeowner responsible for putting in your own ingress and egress at your property. It's not on the village to take care of that. You've mentioned liability of people turning around and coming over and going down the hill. I'm confused because all we want to do is put in a sidewalk. And how is somebody pulling off a 31 and going down the hill? How is that the village's responsibility to find a solution for a private property owner?
Thank you for that. In the past, dealing with the village. When we went to do something on our own before the $50,000 item, we were told to hold off and not to be doing stuff because it's all going to be integrated in with the village. Okay. The other thing is we need to have get the village permission as well as IDOT and support to get the stuff done. So we've made some attempts in the past, but it's, hold off, put it off, when it's time, when all this happens, then all this is going to get rolled in. It's all going to be engineered. It's all going to be it's going to happen at the same time. Okay.
And why isn't that happening now? You said
Why is
that
it
you had
happening now?
engineering that it would cost $50,000. But it seems to me you don't want to spend the $50,000 to solve your problem. You want the village to fix the problem somehow for you. And we didn't create the problem. And so I'm confused as to if the village, if what you're saying is true, that sometime in the past, somebody told you, let's wait, we're going to get this sidewalk put in and let's do it all at the same time. Now's that time. And why don't you spend the $50,000?
Willing to spend the $50,000.
What's that?
Who said that we weren't willing to spend the $50,000?
Well, then why are we debating it?
Because the next thing, because we also have to get the village and IDOT on board, and that wasn't forthcoming at that time.
But where is that $50,000 plan? That plan's nobody here. It's not in front of us.
No, exactly. That's the whole issue.
Well, right.
That's
but
my
it's not-
question.
It's not
That's
our
my question
issue,
as
right?
well. That's the part that I don't understand in this whole scenario is that why is a plan not been done and submitted to the village? That's a piece I'm missing somehow.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you're saying.
I said the piece that I'm missing is why hasn't a plan been created and submitted to the village? That was said here, but I
Okay,
missed it.
well, going back to the $50,000 figure, okay. We never got proceeded with the drawings and all the rest of the stuff at that point in time because first of all, there's a lot of costs. And the other thing is we'd have to get the cooperation of the village and IDOT to do it. And the combination, you're going yeah.
Let me just say, so what I hear you saying is that you have to have the cooperation of IDOT and the village to create a plan. I don't think that's the case.
No, in order to, we're being told to hold off, wait for when things are the right time to do it. So whatever plans would be incorporated with the village at that point in time. The preliminary, based on what we described, which is similar to what right now, was $50,000. We're looking at, well,
Or the improvements are, for the improvement is $50,000 or for the plan is $50,000?
No, I don't remember. The engineering would be on top of that. And that, 2,000, 5,000, don't know. But this $50,000 was the number. And there was no point in spending the money to refine it at that point in time.
I have to say, I agree with Mayor and Trustee Carroll. From what I hear presented today, it's your private property. It's not for the village to give you your ingress and egress from your property. And there's a sidewalk easement. And the reason it's dangerous that people are going by is because they can't pass over, with your car being there in the sidewalk. So that's creating a danger for those pedestrians and cyclists and so forth who want to traverse that stretch of the road.
And we wish it wasn't so. Correct. Yeah. All right.
So basically, I really don't want staff, spending time in this anymore because from what they've been telling me and filling me in, that they've been going around and around and around with you, Bill, on all this stuff, and it's kind of the same.
And what is the round and round part?
Well, as far as giving suggestions, they even offered, I think, to move some gravel or do something with the pad on the north end, and I don't think nothing. We really don't know what you want, so that's why I thought.
My understanding was that they were offered that we would be allowed to put gravel on there and to park there on a temporary basis.
Okay, well,
and
I think,
we're figuring we're going to be parking there at least a year.
Right.
And these type of things end up have a tendency to be permanent. And there's some other issues too that we could talk about.
I just think all due respect that you should come back with a plan. They'd be happy to review it. We can talk
I think
about
we're
it.
done here because we don't have a plan yet, but possibly at the beginning of the engineer today that hopefully that'll be, but
Then the problem we're against is we could lose that grant in the year, right? So then we have no sidewalk again.
Yeah, we might have the ability to extend it one more year, but we'd have to ask for that extension.
I would hope that it wouldn't take that long to get it done. I didn't expect it would take this long now.
Have you only gone to one person or are you going
No,
to
no,
multiple people to get a plan?
Well, what you call and say, hey, we got this project. We're gonna put in a driveway and parking, and and we're not even getting calls back. The very first one was one that we've been having delivered gravel, and they do that type of work. The first thing he says, well, we're really backed up. We're working from sunrise to sundown. When I get a chance, I'll.
But you're talking about contractors. We're talking about an engineering plan, right? Is that what
Well,
we're talking about? You're talking about a contractor
they would
brings
do-
gravel?
They would do the engineering.
Oh, they
These
do
are-
it all?
These are guys that do sidewalks
Yeah.
and driveways.
So I think that's what we're looking for in an engineered plan, right? Steve, and then what would be the process?
That's correct.
Submit
I
it.
mean, the things that Mr. Slaker has indicated would definitely require, if you're talking about retaining walls or slopes going down and trying to figure out the grade being good enough for a driveway, you may not get an asphalt builder to come in and just do that engineering for you. A lot of times the asphalt builders want to go and they want to just rip up what you have and rebuild it. So that's one thing. As far as the temporary gravel, we do understand 100% that it's not intended that would be a long-term solution. It was more or less, if we did that, which essentially would just be adding some gravel to where he currently has that gravel on the north side, a little bit further into that property, would just be so he has a temporary place to park while the sidewalk's being put in. And then during that time, we would come back and try to work out give him more time to give us a plan, a long-term plan. As Mr. Slaker indicated, the problem with that sometimes is if you don't have a timeline on the end of that plan, that temporary parking solution may be the solution for a long time.
But that's not the village's problem. If it's a long-term solution, that's the homeowner's responsibility to bring something to the village for us to look at. I have a couple questions for you, Steve. If we were to delay this for a month, number one, is that okay with Geneva Construction? That would be my first question. My second question is, if we delay it for any length of time, how long would it take if we had to request a delay from IDOT or an extension of the grant for another year?
Mm-hmm.
How long would that process take from start to approval?
Okay, so let's start with the grant. I have to check with our benefits coordinator, who is also, she's overseeing the grant. When we do our reports, it's quarterly and you have the ability to extend at a certain point. So I want to make sure we haven't passed that point. Typically, it's the grants through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. They're actually very easy to work with. So in theory, extending the grant, if allowed, may not be the worst thing. Geneva Construction, we did call them today after we received the letter from Mr. Slaker. And we're very fortunate that they haven't fully mobilized yet. Would they like to be and work in this? Yes, because they're doing our road program and the sidewalks. And I think they wanted to piggyback on it because it's easier for them. But we think we have a few weeks where we can buy some time. But at some point, you lose the construction season. And so you're talking about if you don't do the sidewalk in the next month or two, potentially, and John can jump in, then you are pushing it off till next year, which is why if there was an interim, it would be some kind of temporary parking solution while we do this and then we move forward with the sidewalk.
Would that cost go up then on the sidewalk? I mean, I don't know. What was the price? Was it?
The grant the remaining dollar amount on the grant is about $40,000. And so we are paying, I want to say it's about 15 to 20 of our own.
Out of our pocket?
Yeah. Out of pocket to
So that
finish
could
it.
become larger if next year costs go up.
I would be in favor of, and I'm throwing this out there, for delaying it, any start with Geneva Construction until our first September meeting.
Okay.
And then if there's, our first September meeting, that's
It's actually September
19th.
20th.
It's the 19th or 20th.
20th.
I think we gotta build the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know what to say. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess not confusion, but regardless of what plan is eventually reached, it's not going to change the plan of where the sidewalk's going, what elevation the sidewalk's going in at, anything like that, right? I mean, we're not going to have to change the type of sidewalk that's going in, right?
That's correct.
The
Yeah.
sidewalk is a sidewalk, whether it's put in tomorrow or a year from now, right? So then the issue, I guess, is where would you park? Is that
That's the problem.
the
You'd be parking on the
temporary
sidewalk.
solution of where to park, correct?
We have to have some sort of agreement that would not, if we end up getting stuck there, we don't know if IDOT is gonna approve the cut, the moving. Does that seem like a possibility that would happen?
I think what Mr. Slaker is trying to tell you, and this is the potential concern in this. His solution requires an IDOT curb cut to be moved. And so if IDOT doesn't,
Go back to what it was.
Isn't that curb cut though now for a driveway? I mean, it'd be right. Is that why they moved it there?
I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't. But
That was moved there on the assumption that.
But if they move it to the center, it'd be hard to get to your driveway. If they moved it back to the center, you couldn't get your drive unless you snaked in, right? I mean, so the driveway would be out if they moved it over.
It's, first of all, it's gonna be further east. All right. Which gives you, it's like a 15-foot radius for curves. So that helps. The other part of it is we're looking at having a little finger in the middle that, so you can pull in, so the cars can basically shuffle, so they can leave space from one to the other, and also be able to right now, you have to come in, and you have to be pointed north in order to be able to go out. All right, so this actually give you the ability to do a turnaround on the property in order to get oriented out the right way. You don't want to be stopping on Route 31 backing in, and you don't want to back out on 31. That's been one of the issues when we try to park on that green space, is you're coming up. First of all, the bikers and the pedestrians can't hear you. And so you're backing up. Other times you go in and you pull down, you can see them better, but you really can't see, like on the, when they're coming from the north, you couldn't really see them because of the hillside. We've had, excuse me, very surprised, shocked looks on their faces, and I'm sure there was on our faces too, coming up, because you have to take a run at that hill to get up. And one of the things we're looking at was having a pad right at the top, about 18 feet it would take. But what happens is when you do that, you're going 2.5 feet worth, at least 2.5 feet worth of gravel to bring it up, and that goes all the way down, Mr. Engineer, right? Oh, anyhow, but so you have that same slope going all the way down, and then you're building up the sides. It's just, one thing leads to another. But
right now we have residents, like I said, walking in the grass, and it's not good for them either. With the 19th, if he brought something, that'd give you almost a month for engineering. Brought something back. 2-3 weeks. I mean, what the cutoff is for the sidewalk. I mean,
I guess what I'm asking you is, what are you asking me? Are you asking for me to bring something?
no.
back on the
I'm
20th,
asking,
or-
would that be, if he brought something to review, would we still have time to get that sidewalk in if we're at the end of September? It's a crapshoot, I suppose, with Geneva and how busy they are. And
Yeah, as John puts it, once you bump them, you're kind of just at their beck and
Right.
call for when they're ready to come back. So, which isn't, the end of the world.
right. My concern, Bill, is we'll be doing this around and around and around, and somehow you need to come and tell us what works for you and get it approved. And
That'd be my only concern is ultimately, is the village, I mean, where's the end goal? I mean, I need to know, are we looking for the village to pay for this solution or that's
No.
what it's,
No.
that's where I'm like, when I'm looking at that, I'm saying,
No.
I mean, the village isn't designing it. I don't intend that we would be paying for it either.
My suggestion when I said was suggesting delaying is let's say September 1st. If talk to Geneva Construction and if we don't have something in the village to review from the homeowner by September 1st, we move forward. We don't have to have another village board meeting or another discussion. We just move forward and tell Geneva Construction. So if there's
they're
a
available.
petition.
We're still
or
bumping
a
Geneva
request-
Construction from their original start date, which is 2 days from now. So maybe he does bring it in 2 weeks' time and Geneva Construction says, sorry, so sorry, we're booked up now and we may not have time to do it before the season ends. So that's a risk and we don't want to risk the grant that we have to get that sidewalk put in. That's my opinion.
I'd just like to comment on something trustee Nedved had said, and that's, I don't know that the sidewalk project really impacts the driveway whatsoever. If we were to wait for a delay on IDOT, there's nothing saying that the existing curb cut couldn't be put back to high back and that curb cut could be moved over at a later date. If it took a little extra concrete work on our end to make that work, I don't think that would be the end of the world to help out in that capacity. But outside of, I think really the only outstanding issue is locating or identifying a temporary parking area, establishing a time frame of, what's reasonable to get a plan in, and maybe is it 6 months, is it whatever it might be as a temporary, and kind of come to an agreement on that. And I think the project can ultimately move forward as scheduled.
I think John's right. And that's what I was trying to get across too, is no matter what you do, and Mr. Slaker will have to find somebody, have a design. It's going to take longer than 2 weeks or a month by the time you actually get a plan to come in. So that's why I've said the temporary option, if the village would allow that, which would be, because we don't normally allow gravel. You have to pave your surface to park on in town. But what we would do is allow him basically to expand his existing gravel that he's had for, 50 years or so, just extend it out for now for the time being. And that would be the temporary solution while he's working on a plan.
He would do that after the concrete's in, after the walk. Is that how that works,
With
John?
the
or-
concrete going first then?
We had discussed the timing with the contractor, works best for him, but I think you may want to get it established first.
Prior, right.
Just because you,
Driving over a soft
Yes.
concrete, yeah. But he's
are you
giving
talking about the sidewalk layout or the driveway layout? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it depends on how complicated or what options you're asking for.
But he has an option though, so he can park on that temporary pad and then it could take whatever it takes, right?
Right,
6
as
months.
much time as you would need
Right,
to get somebody
right.
on board.
So I mean, that would
Yeah.
solve our issues. We get sidewalk and give a place to park. It's not like there's no option. He's got an option. He just doesn't like that option. Is that right? It's temporary.
It-
And it's flat, right? That north piece, flat.
temporary. We get stuck, that we don't end up being kicked off of there before a solution gets, if we don't know, to us, as.
You said you'd get
we
kicked
think
off of it?
IDOT is a big deal to get the curb cut. All right.
Hey, Mr. Slaker,
I
I'm
can't-
concerned that if you go on to a temporary parking pad, that changing a curb cut at IDOT could be a year.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
can
what
we-
his concern is that we would have an arbitrary deadline and that we would
Well,
kick
can
him
we
off of that.
do that? And then we understand the circumstances. Can we extend that then to alleviate that problem or?
I mean,
There's still nothing before the board to agree to though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not even made a request for some sort of temporary parking for us to latch on to.
Well, I'm trying to tell him that's kind of his only option.
And
Right,
that's-
where we're
I mean,
at.
just make a request that you get that if you put sidewalk in, I can put a temporary gravel place for my car right here. Bring that to the board so we can consider something. That's all.
Right. I mean, it's not like we're
we
not
just
giving them
should let-
options. I'm just saying, it's not our way and park in the street. I mean, there is option,
Right.
just like the
See, a
staff spent a lot of time
consultation,
in
you
this.
have
So.
have to be a legal document, right?
So we had this conversation. Well, I call it a solution. It's more of a, I know Mr. Slaker, you have indicated to me that, and I understand from a resident standpoint that to be given a temporary option to park on something that goes against village code is, yes, it's temporary because it's a project and there's nowhere else to go in that regard. But the true legal way to do it would be to do a board action to allow it for a temporary amount of time. And as I was asking Kevin is if that, just off the top of his head, how it would word, and it's probably a ordinance allowing it for that property because you'd be amending the code for that property for a minimal amount of time or whatever.
Can we do an oral motion tonight and move forward with the project? Or do we need an actual ordinance in writing? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Also, we want to have the village support the moving of the cut with IDOT.
I'm not really sure we're a party to that conversation because that's the IDOT right away and it abuts a private property. Our limited, in my understanding, our limited authority would just be to making sure that driveways comply with the village code on private property.
I understand that, but the village doesn't support it, doesn't push for it, IDOT's not going to do it. I mean, when it got moved from where it was over, that was.
Yeah, I can't speak, I guess, I think IDOT will consider your request on its merits alone. I'm not necessarily certain that they would ask our opinion. If they were to ask the village's opinion, I'd defer to either Steve or the village board itself.
And that's, John, that would be predicated that they would close the curb cut, right? They would close the existing one. So there wouldn't be two.
That would make it more appealing to IDOT. I mean, if you were to go and ask for an additional curb cut, that might be a different consideration than it would be to one.
But that could be down the road, right? Right now, we just want to put a sidewalk in and a temporary parking spot.
Well, but
We've been talking about this for an hour almost.
We don't want to be doing something right now that then makes it more difficult or harder or impossible to do something else later.
I agree with my colleagues. I think we need to move forward with the sidewalk and the issue with IDOT is a separate issue that we're not a party to.
I mean, there's been a vehicle, parked there
I think that we should move forward with the sidewalk and while we're doing that, work with Mr. Slaker to come up with a solution that satisfies it. But if to delay it and lose money, I think would be a little bit imprudent.
Okay, I would hate that too, but I don't want this, well, okay, you've got parking one and done and then you're stuck.
We're
not
trying to
gonna
work,
let
we're
you
trying to
hang.
work with you the best that we can without losing the advantages the village has of getting that IDOT grant for the sidewalk, and the sidewalk needs to go in. And so I'm not sure, we're trying to do our best and give you a temporary spot. We're going to, approve you that for that temporary spot. And so I'm not sure why that doesn't kind of cover as much as we can at this moment.
You just don't want to get stuck there.
Yeah, well, we can cross that bridge when we come to it, Bill. We can, talk, I mean, I'm committed, I'm a man of my word. I go, well, when that time comes, I'm going to be in support of whatever we need to do to work out an agreement that you'll be happy with, or at least satisfied with, kind of a thing. And I'm sure the rest of the board have the integrity to do that as well. But in the meantime, because of practical reasons and our commitment to all the other residents of the town, we kind of need to move forward with this project. It's going to put in motion and it's kind of set and going. And to delay it might cost us as much money as it would to cost you to rebuild your driveway. So
You come up with paperwork to kind of cover this as far as the temporary, so we don't end up being stuck there.
So this is what I recommend. I recommend at this point that we come back on September 20th with a board action to allow a temporary spot, because that's what it sounds like the board said is reasonable. In the meantime, we will continue to work and see if there's any, about the long-term solution. We'll talk more about the IDOT curb cut and what that entails.
So we're pushing the sidewalk down the road though still?
No, I'm sorry. The sidewalk, yes, it would be pushed down, but like I said, we did contact Geneva. I think it's not their favorite, but they would be willing to push it back a month.
I wouldn't do that,
No,
honestly.
why are we
I
pushing
wouldn't
the
either.
sidewalk
I
back?
think everybody
No.
wants it
I
in
say
Wednesday.
proceed
Okay.
as planned
proceed with the
and
sidewalk.
work with Mr. Slanker to come up with a solution while the sidewalk's not gonna be built in a half a day.
Okay,
You
that's,
know,
that's
it's
fine.
several
Then
days.
Yeah, the burden shouldn't be on our staff though to come up with a solution. That's been the rub. So
What?
No.
I said this, it's not the staff's issue to come up with a solution. The homeowner needs to
Right,
come
well,
up with a
when he
solution.
would present some
That's
plans,
it.
his
Right,
ideas.
right.
Right, no,
The
that's
staff
it.
And
has
then we
already
make a
done enough.
decision,
You
right?
know, they have a lot of things to do every day and this has been taking a lot of time.
Hey,
for a
hey,
sidewalk. And
John.
I really tried to help them nicely and respectfully, but it come to the point where gotta get off the pot or whatever. And everybody, you have to decide what you want.
First day we had an engineer.
What's that?
Today's the first day that we had somebody come out.
Okay.
We got somebody out. And
But
don't
I
know
think-
How it's gonna go.
My colleagues here want to go ahead with the sidewalk Wednesday. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just,
Yes.
like I said, I don't
I
see,
think we all agree on that.
John.
I'll agree on that. Go ahead
How-
with the sidewalk as scheduled.
how much wider would that spot that he parks on now? How much wider does that need to be to make this sidewalk go in? A couple feet, 3 feet, 4 feet?
I'm familiar enough with the site. I think
Roughly.
if the sidewalk's 5 feet, maybe that same amount would seem.
I mean, it doesn't
logical.
look like he's parked completely on where the sidewalk would be. It looks like it's east a little of,
They're looking for about 12 feet and then some space beyond that is what our research is. Like in one car, it's when you open the doors, it's 13 feet when you step out, side to side.
I think temporarily it might be able to be a little less than that.
that's what I'm saying. It's just because I guess these cars have been parked there for 70 years, which doesn't meet the village code. Right. So why do we have to worry about a temporary spot? To me, this is a temporary spot that he's been parking on for 70 years, since it
That
doesn't meet
is-
code,
That is the route that the staff has taken. And I think the issue, why it came up tonight was that has always been the staff's intent, was that temporary he is literally only a few feet from where he currently parks.
That's what I'm saying.
And-
Put the sidewalk in,
and
extend
then
it 3 or 4 feet.
It's not
and
a
let's go.
permanent solution. We get that, but at least temporarily while the sidewalk goes in,
But the temporary would be on his property. Am I correct? Or is it on the parkway? It's
the temporary would be on his property.
right. See, right now,
Part
it
of-
looks like it's on.
Part of the
parkway.
temporary now is, I believe, is on his property. It's hard to tell, but I'm
It-
guessing.
maybe-
To
a couple
trustee
feet of that.
Nedved, it's very close,
Right.
depending on, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the pins not even been located yet? I mean, have we even?
They've
gone
been
that far?
identified. Yeah.
Okay. So like I said, I don't see why we wouldn't just move on, let them extend that thing a few feet, whatever it is to fit your car there so that it's not on the sidewalk and move forward.
I just want to
you
be
know?
clear though, that the staff is not coming up with a solution for him. He's got to come up with his own solution. I mean, they can certainly look at it and review it, but we're not in the business of coming up with ideas for homeowners. I mean,
Right. I think that
Agree.
we put the sidewalk in and it's on the homeowner to bring a request for variance, whether
Okay.
it's
You got a place to
temporary or
park.
permanent or
Right.
whatever for his parking.
Once again, we have to have that plan to do that.
Yeah.
But again, Bill, if you were to pull in tonight to the right by 5 feet, nobody here is going to say anything about it, right? I mean, if you were to pull your car 5 feet further to the right, if there happened to be some gravel there, you could do that for yet another 20 years if this topic was never brought up, right? I mean, Steve, is that?
No, to your point,
You know,
Add some gravel and then
like,
park there.
yeah, I mean, if you did that without even notifying anybody, it never would have been brought up, I'm sure. So
We still have an issue with that as far as the cut in order to be able to shuffle back and forth.
but that has nothing to do with the sidewalk,
right.
nothing at all to do with the
Or
sidewalk,
having a parking place, you'll have that.
Or moving the cut.
of course.
I don't know if we can say that or not. I don't, support something like that. I mean, we're not IDOT. And that's
Yeah, we can't really speak to the curb cut itself.
Right.
That's not our jurisdiction.
right. Can you get the sidewalk in still this week?
With,
What's that?
if
The sidewalk, can that still be
Requesting that.
rescheduled then after they already,
with IDOT. to get that
Unscheduled
curb
it?
cut moved, the village wouldn't oppose it.
Yeah, I don't see the village opposing changing the curb cut, but that, again, it's not really our jurisdiction. We wouldn't oppose it.
I think that's what John was saying earlier. Is
Yeah.
IDOT ultimately determines which curb cuts go where on
they
their
don't
roads.
notify the village, right? On any of these curb
John,
cuts?
hey, John, does IDOT ever contact the village? I mean, sometimes they might on big developments, but on a small development, will they contact the village as a courtesy for curb cuts when one's requested?
I don't see a lot of requests. I don't see any requests like that from IDOT.
Unlike smaller properties, so.
Okay,
Okay,
Okay.
we're done.
you're gonna schedule that sidewalk then for this week if you can? Is that
We
it?
are going to schedule it as soon as we can.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Name opposed, all right. Good night, everybody.